this cloudy and stormy day in autumn, we are waiting for bad weather to roll in. We are expecting thunderstorms and lightning, possible hail and rain, which we do need lots of rain. It's been a dry, sunny fall so far. So it's a perfect day to stay inside and do some baking. It is a lot of work to do all of your baking for the week in one day, but it can be well worth it to have your freezer stocked with all of the baked goods. It's also getting close to the holiday season, which is my favorite time to do baking. So I have a couple of recipes that I want to try out. We're going to do some basic honey whole wheat sourdough, which I already have going, and I'm already in the process of stretch and folds. I like to do 4 of those before the long fermentation. I have some cinnamon raisin swirl bread that I'm starting up right now with steamed milk and butter melting in a bowl. And then the raisins have to sit in hot water for at least 15 minutes to soak up and get plump. I just wanted to share that process a little bit more with you guys. I made this cinnamon raisin swirl bread with you guys last time I did a video like this, but it is absolutely delicious. We had to make it again, and I wanted to share it with some of my neighbors as well. Lately, I've really enjoyed printing out the recipes that I find on Pinterest and on blogs online, printing them out and keeping them. I'll be putting these all in a binder, and the ones that I have really loved, we can use again and again. And the ones that I have yet to use, it's just a good place to keep them all as well. My strategy for getting all of these baked goods done today, there's about 5 baked goods that we're going to make, is getting all of the breads rolling first. So you just saw me put together the yeast and get started for the pumpkin rolls. I'm now adding the raisins to the cinnamon raisin swirl bread. And you want to be sure that your raisins are not piping hot. And so go ahead and rinse them under cold water if you need to. Let them sit and cool before you mix it into the bulk of your dough. I'm actually making 4 loaves of the cinnamon raisin swirl bread, which is more than I've ever made at one time. And I do not have a bowl that's large enough to accommodate all of this. And so here I am just adding the dough in 2 batches, but it does need all of these raisins. And can you believe the load of raisins? I think I added a little more than it called for, but this loaf is packed with raisins and cinnamon. It's absolutely delicious. So that's set to rise for 2.5 hours. And now I'm over here putting together the pumpkin rolls, which I have never made before, but I was so drawn to the bright yellowy pumpkin color of these rolls. And I think it's so beautiful and perfect for the season, and a good way to use up pumpkin if you have lots of pumpkin. So we're getting that started, mixing all of the pumpkin and butter and flours and yeast. And then we're going to also let this set and rise for about 1.5 hours. And once I get all of my yeasted breads and sourdough bread going in their long fermentation and also rising, then I'll move on to making some of the other things that take a little bit less time. So next I'm going to be making a big cluster sourdough discard granola. I love to make lots of different types of granolas and change the flavors according to the season we're in. And so today's granola is going to have lots of cinnamon in it, and I even added some molasses, which was not called for in the recipe. I've never made it with sourdough and in clusters as well, so this is a little bit new for me, but it definitely sticks to the basics of oats, coconut oil, and honey, which is my normal recipe. But on top of that, we're adding some sourdough discard. If you don't do sourdough and you do want a good granola recipe, I make granola quite a bit on here. And my regular granola recipe is 4 cups of oats, half a cup of honey, and half a cup of coconut oil. And on top of that, you can add any raw nuts or spices and bake that in the oven at 350 degrees for about 20 minutes. And that's really your basic granola recipe. This recipe called for an additional 1/4 cup of sugar, but I added 1/4 a cup of molasses instead and just wanted to see what kind of flavor that brought to it. And I don't usually like adding tons of sugar to the granola anyway. I usually just stick with the honey. So we'll see how this molasses works with it. I can tell you that it wasn't super sweet, but it also was a great flavor and it didn't taste really molassesy. It was almost like a gingerbread flavor with the cinnamon and molasses. It was delicious. So I put that in the oven at 350 degrees and it's going to take twice as long with the sourdough discard in there and the molasses a little bit more moist. I love looking on Pinterest for different holiday and Christmas and Thanksgiving recipes and ideas. I get so excited for the baking season. In fact, I love having a couple different days, maybe a few days in December where I do lots of baking. I like to make cookie plates and goodie plates for the friends and neighbors, but I also love baking different breads and I just love trying all sorts of new things. One of those new things I was trying today is a sourdough gingerbread cake. I'm always drawn to the beautiful gingerbreads that they make over in Europe. But this cake today is very simple and it should be very moist because it's made with sour cream and sourdough discard, of course, plenty of molasses, and it actually calls for stout beer, but I used a cup of water, which it said you could substitute for as well. And all of that sugar and butter is melted here in a skillet. And then it just smells like a molasses caramel. It just smells so delicious. And then you pour in all of the spices into that with the ginger and the cinnamon and clove and vanilla. And oh boy, it makes your house smell like Christmas. It smells so good. You pour it all into your flour mixture. And it's a little bit clumpy at first, but don't worry about that because when you add in your sour cream and sourdough and egg mixture, it all smooths out and comes together. And then you just bake that at 350 degrees in a 9x13 pan that's covered in parchment. So simple, very moist. And it was absolutely delicious. I think this would be a great addition to put on your cookie plate that you're giving to your friends for Christmas, or maybe even just taking to an outing, serving it to some guests. I did add walnuts to my granola, but I also wanted to put some roasted pumpkin seeds in here and some cranberries. And I always add my fruit, and if the nuts are cooked, I add that after the baking of the granola. And so I'm just mixing that all in here, trying to adhere what I had just added to the granola, but also keeping some of those big crunchy clusters together. I'm going to be putting all of the recipes that I'm baking up today down in the description box below the video, all the links to these recipes. For Thanksgiving and Christmas, I usually make my favorite roll recipe, which I've shared here on the channel, and I'll share it again this year. It is the best roll recipe ever. They're buttery and soft and fluffy and moist. But like I said, I was so drawn to this bright yellow color of these pumpkin rolls, and I had to give it a try. I'm the type of person that loves to try new things all the time, just exploring and brushing up on my skills. And so I want to thank Skillshare for sponsoring today's video. Skillshare is the largest online learning community for creatives with thousands of classes led by industry experts across film, illustration, design, freelance, productivity, and more. For me as the creative, this is a place that I can brush up on my baking skills, always learning new things about sourdough. I have a goal to learn how to make croissants. You can search different topics and hobbies and skills that you are interested in, but there also are learning paths, which are specially designed classes and categories that you can study things that you're interested in. And what makes this site especially unique is that you have connection to the teacher. There is a tab that you can communicate, ask questions, post in a community. There's so much here. I'm going to explore more about productivity and owning a small business, things that can help my YouTube channel as well. It's just a fun way to skill up and learn so many things from the comfort of your own home. And the first 500 people to use my link that's down in the description box will receive a 1-month free trial for Skillshare, so you can go ahead and try it out. And thanks again, Skillshare. Enjoy learning. So I didn't have to be in the kitchen all day. I mean, a lot of time in the kitchen today, yes, but there was plenty of downtime during rising times. Time to chase around the toddler and get some homeschooling done. These are the pumpkin rolls, and they're puffy and beautiful. I'm sprinkling some pumpkin seeds on here just for the looks, and they're tasty. In the future, though, I would definitely cut each of these rolls in half. So it would be twice as many. That would be 24 small rolls rather than 12 large rolls. They were much bigger than I anticipated. Well, we knew this would happen. Remember when I told you I didn't have a bowl that was quite large enough for 4 loaves of cinnamon raisin bread? Well, here it is. It's overflowing. And obviously I need to keep my eye out for a ginormous bowl. I can just hear you guys typing in the comments to put this dough into 2 different bowls or to buy a big bowl. But, sometimes when you're just in the work mode and you just have a task to accomplish, that's what you think about. You just trying to get the job done. And that's what we're doing today, is getting this bread made. This is the fun part, where I get to roll these loaves into that swirly cinnamon loaf. What I love about this loaf is that it's really, truly moist, but also light and fluffy. And I think one thing that adds to that moisture is that I am painting some milk and melted butter onto the dough. And this makes it nice and moist inside, but it also acts as a glue to keep all of this cinnamon mixture. This is some cinnamon and flour. I know that summer mixed here in the warmer weather is great for doing things outside and being productive outside and playing. But I have always loved to be inside working on something. I do like the outdoors, but there's something particularly cozy and comfortable about putting my hand to a project on a cloudy, stormy, or rainy day that I absolutely love. Almost prefer, if you would ask me. And it's funny because my husband is just the opposite. He loves being outside, working outside. Skiing in the snowy mountains is his favorite thing to do. And so, what's your favorite thing to do during the cold season? Are you a snuggle up inside and read a book or bake something delicious? Or do you love working outside? What do you like to do in the colder months as winter is fast approaching? With the days becoming shorter and there being less sunlight, I really feel like nature is telling us that this is a time to slow down. We've worked hard in the gardens and outside, and this is a time to rest. And in today's society, where we're not always working outside or growing our own food, it is easy to just keep working as hard as ever, and we can easily get run down. So I think it's really wise to take a cue from nature and use this time to really slow down.
Just a windstorm.
And that reminds me, do you know why the leaves start to change colors and fall from the trees? Well, I recently heard somebody tell me that it's because in the sun, those leaves are making chlorophyll and they're feeding off of that light that they're being given. But when that light shortens and it starts to go away, they stop making as much chlorophyll. And that is the cue to the trees that it's time to go into hibernation mode. And so maybe we can take a lesson from the trees, from nature, and learn that this is our time to rest. It's time to come inside, maybe heal a little bit, heal ourselves with good food, and enjoy the cold winter months ahead of us. So here's our glorious bounty that we've created here. We have granola and rolls that we've had with soup so far. I have 4 sourdough, whole wheat honey loaves of bread that we will use for sandwiches and toast for breakfast and French toast and whatever we need it to be. Here is our cinnamon raisin cinnamon swirl bread, which the kids will absolutely devour and be used for breakfast and toast and snacks and just enjoying. The sourdough gingerbread was just as moist and delicious as ever, and it wasn't too sweet. It was absolutely delicious. I ran out of loaf pans. I was using them all for the cinnamon swirl bread, so this is how I baked up the sandwich loaves, and I really like how they look. They look quite rustic and beautiful. And all of these breads are going to be going into bread bags. Most of them will be put right into the freezer. They freeze great. I pull them out when I need them, let them thaw out on the counter. And I'm even freezing half of the gingerbread and keeping half of that out on the counter to snack on and have for dessert. You can find all of these glorious recipes down in the description box below. And enjoy the cooler weather. Enjoy the slower pace. You can keep track of when videos are coming out in my community posts on my channel. And thanks for being here. Love you lots.